Hey folks, welcome back. A little while back, I sort of put this out to the hive mind, like which did you prefer on this body, the koa binding or some maple binding that I had made up. And almost overwhelmingly, everybody picked the koa, and I think that was really like the right choice. It made a huge difference in this guitar, really made it something special. But now it's kind of put me in a little bit of a dilemma. So in my original, I guess, notion or plan for this, I was going to continue on. I've got this chunk of limba that I've made into a guitar neck, and I was going to stick with just a plain limba headstock. So on like this, with, you know, maybe an M&E fretboard, probably an M&E fretboard. And I think tone-wise, that would have really worked with that maple binding that I was looking at. But now the hive mind has spoken, and we went with the koa, and I think that was totally the right decision. But I don't think this works anymore. So, but here's my problem. I've already made this neck. The headstock's all cut out. The, you know, where I'm going to glue the fretboard on is already flat. I really want to do, and I'll use this mahogany neck that I'm also going to do in this batch. So I really want something like this now, where I've got the koa headstock veneer, and I'm going to go with rosewood fretboard. I think that'll all tie everything together. But this neck is essentially done. So what I really need to do, I need to put a veneer on here, but that's going to change sort of all the dimensions and stuff. So what I really want to do is take some thickness off of this and then pop a little bit of veneer on top and then reflatten this, but without taking away any of the thickness, because right now it's right perfect, and make that happen. Now, you know, I've got jigs and stuff to do this when I don't have a heel glued on, but I do not have anything once we're all assembled. So we're going to kind of have to do this seat of the pants and see how it goes. My original thought was try and shave a little bit off of it with the bandsaw and then just clean it up on the joiner. But I think that leaves too much risk that I might get it very wobbly, or that I won't be able to do a straight cut on the bandsaw. So what I'm gonna do, and I've already checked this out, I do have enough space to span both the tables on the joiner, so I can just take nice thin slices off the front of this. It's already flat, so I shouldn't end up putting any kind of taper on it by going over the joiner. It should just take off pretty even slices. So that's what we're going to do. Thin this out a little bit, put a new veneer on it, and then figure out how we're also going to do this, which I think I still can do on the joiner. Just putting this on the outfeed table and then coming against here. The only problem being is that's probably going to be really prone to tear out. So I'm not quite sure yet how we're going to solve that problem. First part of the plan seems to have pretty much done the trick. We're just under 5/8 with the veneer I'm going to use and the headstock. That gives me a little bit of wiggle room for sanding and so forth, and will be just fine for the tuners that I'm going to use. Now the top is not, there is a little bit of snipe, so we are going to hit this with a sanding block and just kind of straighten that out a little bit, but it's not bad. So we did a little sanding, checked it with a straight edge, we're looking pretty good. This is the piece that we're going to use on there. It's going to be kind of hard to visualize until we actually see the outline, but there's going to be a little bit of this flame sort of working towards the top with, you know, the curl going vertically along the headstock. So we're going to just glue this up. I'm going to do it right here on the yoga mat and just put some clamps on the table. The yoga mat should give nice even pressure on the back side of that, so we'll end up with a nice flat glue up. And let's get to it. I'm not too worried about filling up the holes. There's going to be some squeeze out. The holes will get re-drilled coming in from the other side. I don't want a lot of squeeze out, but I can clean that up as it starts to dry. Yeah, get some of the more egregious spots here. Okay. And we look sort of perpendicular to the curl. Gonna want to slide around a lot. Let's sort of get this clamped in its place. All right. And our seams look tight. We got a little bit of squeeze out, which is what we kind of hope to see. Tells us that the joint is nice and tight. And we need to let that sit. Let's make sure that yes, we are applied to all the flat spots. All right, we'll be back in a little bit. It's been a few minutes, and I just wanted to show one of my sort of favorite tricks for dealing with squeeze out. Now, if you've got some squeeze out and you immediately try and wipe it after you've just put stuff together, all you're going to do is smear it into the pores. But if you wait just a few minutes, the glue will turn a bit gummy, and you can just take a scraper, straight edge, whatever, and it just comes right up, leaving minimal stuff to clean up, sand up later. So sometimes you might have to move some clamps out of the way, but by this time the wood's already started to adhere. You're just waiting for it to, you know, completely dry in there. And then just scrape up the gummy bits before they completely dry. And you're all good. All right, everything's dried. We basically got what we expected. Now what we want to do is, ultimately we're going to clean this up with a trim router bit, but let's get rid of the bulk of this stuff, and we're going to go ahead and do this on the scroll saw. Sometimes we do this on the bandsaw too, but the bandsaw tends to be a little bit more chippy. It's quicker, but it also, like, this is curly stuff, so it's going to be, it'll probably be prone to chipping out. So we're going to do this on the scroll saw where I can get a little tighter to the original body without having to worry about it splintering all over the place. All right, now we're got a pretty close trim on this. We can kind of see how this is going to look. I've got a top bearing bit on this, and we're going to go ahead and trim this flush with the existing headstock. Now, remember to use all our best practices, route downhill, so that we don't get any tear out. And let's get going. Headstock's nice and flush. Of course, we will need to do some sanding here, but let's go ahead and recreate our tuner holes. This is a 1/4 inch hole here, so we've got our 1/4 inch Forstner bit. We want to avoid any tear out. Now some of that will be covered by the tuner itself, but so we've got a sacrificial piece of wood here to help us avoid the tear out. All right, we've re-drilled our holes. There will actually be, we're going to use a step-up bit later on to make space for the ferrules on this side. So some of all this tear out will actually be covered, get removed. So that's not a problem. Now the only thing really we have left to do is we need to get this back to where, you know, we've got, this is gone and we have a nice flat top. What to do, what to do. I think I have a plan, or at least a plan, to get me very, very close, and then maybe I can work on something more precise to get closer than that. I've got a flattening bit here, nice chunk of wood. Assuming the table is flat, this chunk of wood is flat along here. It does taper a little bit in this direction by a few thousandths, but along here it is uniform. So what I would like to do, and I did check it out to make sure it didn't like yank or chip or do anything really awful, is just run this across here. Slowly work my way up until I am very nearly at the top. And then I might be able to take that final pass on the joiner by just starting out on the outfeed table with this hanging over, and then trim that just little, you know, maybe the few thousandths left. All right, so let's do that. I actually cranked it a little bit farther than I wanted to, but this has me super close now. For that last little bit, I just took it over to the joiner, put the bulk of the neck on the outfeed table, and the joiner itself took care of that last little sliver to make the top of the neck nice and flat again. So now we have our new headstock veneer on our pre-existing neck. We're going to go with a rosewood fretboard, little previs here, and our guitar will look something like that. Anyways, if this is the kind of content you like, please like, subscribe, comment below. Was there a smarter way to do this? If this happens again, what should I be doing? See you all in the next one.